My name is Minister Rosie Washington. I am a community organizer with PICO at the MICAH Project in New Orleans. And so my pseudo boss is Pastor McBride, the superstar that you got to meet this morning. And I'm just honored to be able to do the work that we're doing around gun violence and mass incarceration there in New Orleans. So today, Fernando and I are going to lead us through an exercise to kind of visualize what has happened with the panel earlier, as well as the conversation Pastor McBride was having, as well as the Advancement Project was having. So before we get started, we want to just set some norms of how this is going to work for the participation within the exercise. Is that okay? So it's an exercise, which means it's interactive, which means people have to move, people have to talk, people have to think, people have to get close, you know, all those types of things. Yeah, all those, you know. And so we want to put it in a contract of sorts so that you remember that you said that you were going to participate, amen? Excuse me, the preacher comes out sometimes. So on this list, what are some of the things we need to put value-wise in order to have a great exercise? I'll start with respect. What else would you need to interact with folks effectively? I didn't hear you. Timekeeper? I like that. Be on time. Yes. Listening. Honesty. Understanding. Say more about that. What do you mean by understanding? So be open. That means listen and comprehension. It's not just I heard you, but I really am listening and understanding. I'm looking to figure out where you're coming from. I'm just not making assumptions about what you're saying. Mike? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Accountability. Say a little bit more about that. That's right. So when you say something, this is not a dark hole, right? It means something in this space. Be accountable for your words and your actions. All right, I think we're ready.
Just a reminder, please put your ideas up here. You have your Post-it notes in the middle of your tables. Please continue to put your ideas up here as far as we're working towards coming up with some principles or values by the end of this. Okay, so what we're going to ask is we're going to ask for this middle table to clear out. Yes. Those of you who sit in the middle, you get all the attention right now. And we're going to use this space, actually. Okay. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the socio-ecological model. Susan talked about it earlier. The individual, you have to treat violence at those 4 levels in order to reduce violence. We're not talking about suppression only, we're talking about treating violence. Because the premise is violence is preventable and treatable. It's not an endemic to any particular race, culture, or ethnic group of people. So, can we get a volunteer? Can the bravest person in the room raise their hand? I saw Corey raise his hand. Come on, Corey. He said he was stretching, but I don't know about that. Okay, so Corey, you just stand in the middle right here. So Corey, and this isn't true about Corey, we know Corey. Corey's doing great work out there in Columbus. Corey is a gang member. Corey is 17 years old, and he's active. He is out there putting in work for his community, and he's the shooter. He's the shooter. Not everyone in a gang is a shooter. Not everyone's a killer. There's a small group of people that are the active shooters. Corey is one of those people. Now, when we're talking about treating him as an individual, what are some ways to treat him at the individual level? So, what do you have to know about him, and what are approaches that you can use to treat? And I'm going to take a couple of responses to that so we can continue this flowing. Great. Okay, so she wants to know about his family dynamics. She wanted to make sure that he's not out there just having kids. Okay. Okay, one more idea of what else do you need to know about him to treat him. He's the one that a lot of people don't treat because he's active. People are scared of him. Yes, ma'am. What does he love to do, and what does he love in life? And if you ask him, he might say, I like killing people. Who has influence over him? Okay, so there's people in this room that can deal with Corey, right? You can go and you can talk to him. You can get to know his family. His family might even invite you over for dinner, right? So we talk about a level of cultural competence in dealing with Corey and his situation. Okay, now we need some more brave souls. Mr. Terrence, could you stand up, please? Can we get a mic over here? Come on, it's not going to be bad, I promise you. Promise you. What are the norms, Rosie? Oh, okay. Okay. You, ma'am, what's your name? Lauren? Gloria, come on up. And then Dolores, please. Oh, absolutely. Okay, can you guys stand kind of around the table? Okay, this is the family here. Your family, pretend you're family. Now this is what we're talking about at the relationship level. And the family right here is, we have Dolores, who is the mother. Now Dolores, though, she has a past. She used to be from the neighborhood, and she liked to party. She did some time in jail. And this, of course, this isn't true, but this is a scenario. She's gotten out of the life. She has her kids. She holds a steady job. She still likes to party every once in a while, but she's not out there active in the gang. But she might support the gang. She might have parties at her house where everyone comes over. It's a kick-it spot, right? She has her children. Corey is one of them. Corey's a 17-year-old active gang member. Terrence is the 9-year-old son, the baby of the family, the one that gets all the attention from grandma, grandpa, aunties, because he's not involved in the neighborhood. He is getting good grades. He goes to church occasionally with grandma. And everyone's putting the energy into him because he's the one that they can save, right? He has hope. Now we have Mike over here. Mike is the boyfriend. Dad's not around. Dad's doing life. But Mike is the boyfriend. They were pen pals when he was locked up. Now he's out, some early release. And he's coming to shack up with the mom, right? He doesn't have a job. He doesn't really have any skills. He doesn't even have an ID. And that's Mike. And we have Gloria over here. She's the 15-year-old daughter. Doesn't like the mom. They get into it all the time. She feels, hey, I'm the only daughter. You show me no love. I don't care about you. They don't have a good relationship. So she's out there, and her thing isn't killing. She's involved with the neighborhood, but her role is not to go shoot people. Her role is to sell drugs. So she's making money. Her whole thing is money. I'm making money. She carries a gun with her because with that comes violence. If she needs to be violent, she will be, but she's not out there perpetrating the violence like her older brother is. So in this family, you have that violence and culture, that gang culture that's entrenched, and you have generations of it because they have aunts and uncles that have been locked up. They have other relatives that are from other neighborhoods or from the same neighborhood. Even they have family gatherings from rival neighborhoods. So this is the family dynamic. How many people know families in a similar situation? Okay, so this isn't just unique to any one place. Now, how do we treat this at the relationship level? Okay, we're going to take the first one. So we're going to take prevention. And this is just in a pure sense of prevention, because we can have definitions, but in prevention, who in this family would prevention target in a pure form? The 9-year-old. Okay, why is that? He's still untouched. He's not involved. But he has a propensity to be involved, right? But he's not involved. So can you stand up and be prevention and put the sign on you and stand behind him, please? Thank you. So prevention is, we talk about it in simple terms. The gang life, that life of violence, is the on-ramp to the freeway, is the fast track to death or incarceration or being paralyzed for the rest of your life. Prevention is preventing them from getting on that track. So they're at the on-ramp trying to block it off. Now we're going to go to intervention, and this is in a pure sense. Who would intervention focus on? Corey, okay? Why Corey? Corey and the daughter, okay. Why is that? They're already involved, okay? Can you give her intervention? Whoever speaks up. Okay, so intervention, and so in the pure form, intervention is going to go after the active shooters, the ones that are committing the acts of violence. That's in a pure form. They can deal with the mom, they could deal with the boyfriend, they could deal with the 15-year-old. They have services for that and can talk to them. But in a pure sense, you're trying to reduce violence. So you're going to go after the active shooters, the ones that are engaged in combat on a daily basis. So if you can stand behind him, please. Back behind Corey, mostly. Okay. So if we can, I don't know how if we could try to get in a circle, maybe around the table. And those folks holding the sign stand behind the people that they're supporting. Okay. The next one is, what's the next one? Reentry. This one's kind of easy, but who would reentry focus on? The boyfriend. Why the boyfriend? Just got out, life isn't moving. Okay, D'Angelo? You stand behind him. So just like someone coming back from war in Afghanistan, they need reentry, right? How do you become a citizen again? How do you re-enter society and get back into your family? Same thing when you leave prison, highly stressful situation, violence is high. How do you become a civilian again, and what support do you have? So D'Angelo's reentry, he's supporting Mike. Now suppression. And we talk about targeted suppression, and in targeted suppression is you do not target the entire community and criminalize the community. You target those perpetuating the violence. In this situation, who would suppression target? Corey, who said that? Raise your hand. Who's that? Okay. Suppression. Okay, can you come and stand behind Corey? Now, suppression, they'd go after, obviously, the drug dealer. It's criminal, right? Criminal acts. But in this pure sense, when you're trying to reduce violence, you're focused on the active shooters. So, now this family, who we all love, is not really stable, right? So can you guys kind of wobble a little bit? Now, the people holding signs, can you put your hands on their shoulders? The entire family? Mom's going to get parenting classes. Mom's going to get support, women's group, okay? Now, and church, absolutely. So in this strategy is that you have these services that are stabilizing that family. It's not just dealing with Corey. Corey's the issue. He's out there shooting. But there's an interrelationship with the family. There's gang ties, there's family, there's drugs, there's domestic violence, there's somebody who's in the house that maybe don't really love the mom, just kind of maybe sleeping there. And there's other issues that could come with that. How do you stabilize a family like that, and how do you understand that family? So this is that second level, that relationship level. Now, let's take this family and let's multiply it by 100. 100 families. Communities are made of families, networks. And when we say family, it includes grandma, grandpa, the aunts, the uncles, the compadres, the play cousins, the people that watched you when you were a little kid that are practically family. You have to understand those relationships and those networks in order to treat violence. So they're still in the middle, but now let's multiply them by 100. Now at the community level, can we have everybody stand up, please? Now, everybody hold their hand up. If you were born before December, no. Now, you all, coming from law enforcement, coming from the various backgrounds, whether it be law, whether it be direct service, whether it be faith-based, you are stabilizing these families that are in the middle. And you're that community level. So it has to be treated at the Corey level, at the Corey's family level, and at the Corey's community level. And there's an interrelationship. Now you all can have a seat. Thank you. Yes, please. Thank you. Now, Rosie is going to talk about treatment at the societal level.
So when we think about treatment, one, we have to ask the question, why is this a concern for us? So people rose their hands about, yeah, I know a family like this. Were you talking about your own family? Was that a yes, no? You can answer out loud. No, you're not talking about your own family. You were. So for those who are not talking about their own families, what is your responsibility to other families who actually look like this, and why? Yes, since you answered. Mm. Mm-hmm. So one aspect is the faith, is that this understanding that whatever your beliefs are, that the ultimate standard is that we love our brothers and our neighbors well, right? So if you operate under any of those, any faith, any tradition, then it is we must learn to love each other well and serve one another. So that's the one aspect. Corey, you had your hand up. So faith, and we're all interconnected. That the plague touches everyone's home, whether we want to admit it or not. Yes, sir. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. So the brother said, let's be real. People dying is bad, and bad communities is bad. But you're taking my money to house them when you don't have to. You all saw the statistics that Pastor McBride raised that we spend $2 million on each murder. That's not 2 million fake dollars. Those are coming out of your pocket, right? So let's be clear, there's an economic side to this. And one more, Brother Mike. Yes. Mm. So again, the interconnectedness through just humaneness as well as our money. We are all American citizens. So that's the community level, though. That's as American citizens, I am concerned about people's faith. I'm concerned about our interconnectedness. I'm concerned about my money. Yes, Chief, you have one more? Yes. So that's community. So how do we translate those values of a community into societal change? What's the difference between community and society? Want to take a stab at it? Mm-hmm. So I heard you say society is made up of several communities. So if we have several communities concerned with how our neighborhoods look, then that means society should be answering to the questions of the communities, right?
The consequences.
There you go.
At the societal level is where policy happens. And some of them are good and well-intended, and some of them have unintended consequences, which maybe they don't play themselves out at the societal level very visibly, but they definitely do play themselves out very markedly in certain communities. So that connection right there is something to think about, because some communities may feel that society doesn't take them into consideration, or that they're not being heard at the at the legislative level.
So the question is, how do we get communities involved in the implementation process of society, which is our political process, right? If all communities, which I think, just like we've been talking about, police officers every day wake up with good intentions on how to fulfill their jobs, right? Should be the same way community is waking up every day trying to figure out how we fix a system that oppresses our own neighborhoods, our own families, our own pockets, right? So there's something missing in the translation between communities who are clearly concerned and what's happened in systems across society. We're talking about mass incarceration. We're talking about the gun violence epidemic. We're talking about our schooling system. Something's not translating from what the community is actually concerned about and what's actually happened. So how do we fill the gap? I see Ms. Connie. I saw your hand. Did you have your hand? Oh, okay. Government provides. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do governments know what services are needed? D'Angelo, you had a response?
Okay, let's finish off with the last three comments.
I think it goes back to proper engagement. A lot of, like you said, services exist, they're out there, but if I as a community member am not aware of those things and I'm not being properly engaged, and I always use the word properly engaged, with people who I trust and have a relationship with, then I'm not going to take advantage of those services. And I think through proper engagement at various levels is everything from, taking advantage of services to actually voting and showing up at council meetings and being involved in your community, that government then begins to understand that these communities matter. And once they understand that these communities matter, then they are more apt to listen to them and provide the services that the community actually needs, as opposed to assuming what is best for the community.
I would just add that we're not asking for enough money for these programs, that they are underfunded. And I'm hoping that our police partners, because we're trying to stave off a tax on LAPD's budget, because I don't want the police defunded. What I want is the police properly funded, and they don't really have enough resources to keep up with cybercrime. They're not prepared to deal with the cartels. I mean, I have some real fears for American policing, and I don't think that the proper level of resources is going into them. We need all kinds of investment on the police side, but we need 10 times that level of investment on the social side, on the social services side, on the human capital side. LAPD has a budget of around $2 billion when you count everything. We don't have 1/100th of that spent on gang intervention, prevention, community refurbishment. We don't shore up our low-income communities with any kind of infrastructure to help with these kids. So I think that as advocates, we have a responsibility to get really hot under the collar about the funding and stop this piecemeal breadcrumbs funding of the social side. And I think that law enforcement will join us in advocating for that because they know that we need it.
Okay, the last two comments here, and we'll end with Terrence.
As I looked at that diagram, what hit me is this is very Zen and Buddhist-like. When you talk in terms of there is no separation, that we all are in this together. And what strikes me is that we seem to be going back to separation. And the separation occurs even within the diagram. If we're truly not separate, then we're all a part of the solution. The government, the community, society, we're all one. And I know that sounds really idealistic, But if we truly are going to have this opportunity to seize the moment and have the kind of breakthrough that the president talked about, is that we have to break away from these separate parts, these different silos that we find ourselves in, and start moving together as a community where we're recognizing all the values of everyone in the community, that we have a pot of money, and that we share that pot of money as a community to deal with the issues that are affecting us. So to me, we can learn quite a bit from the Buddhist community, from the Zen community, about how to eliminate separation and becoming one people.
Right, and the last comment?
I think there continues to be a huge disconnect between policymakers and the communities that they serve. And I think we, as folks embedded within communities, have to demand change and hold our policymakers accountable. And to use a concrete example, I live here in New York City. I live in Brooklyn. And I live about 4 or 5 blocks from, surrounded by public housing projects, in particular the Marcy houses. And I've had an opportunity to speak to a lot of community members there last summer, and what they told me was, what happened to our community center here? We don't have anything. We don't have any resources. There are no more community centers. That's what a mother told me. That's what a teenager told me. That's what a basketball coach told me. I've heard that repeatedly. We know that prevention works. We know it can save lives and it can enrich lives and families. So why was this valuable resource cut? And I think someone else here mentioned it as well. Right, a cop said it. So it doesn't make sense. The priorities are misplaced. I don't know who's setting the priorities at what level. I don't know if this, I just don't know. I would like to know, so if someone here could explain it, that would be very edifying. But there's a disconnect, and so in order to bridge the divide, we have to demand a change and hold our policymakers accountable. It sounds really simple. I know it's extremely difficult because I've witnessed it in New York City where advocates have tried to hold policymakers accountable. It can happen, and so I think we need to do more of that.
Okay, here's the last comment, because then Preeti's going to pull her hair out, and we don't want her to do that. So here we go.
So a few things. You know, you say you don't know who's making those. We're making the decision. It's our priorities. And so there's a philosophical battle, right? You know, Ronald Reagan and Gingrich said the government is the enemy. You are the enemy, you know. So that means we don't fund the government. I mean, philosophy influences how we decide what we fund. So what we do at the Institute, it's a simple scale. We go to the wealthy suburbs. We constantly got to engage, and vice versa. Any college kid, any middle school kid, any high school kid wants to do an internship at the Institute, any college, come and spend time with them. Teach for America, which is controversial in many ways, the one good thing that comes out of it is they will now speak about urban education for the rest of their lives when they're, you know, in the Bahamas with their wealthy friend relaxing. When they're 40 years old, they will not speak about those Americans anymore, right? One advantage you have in Israel, everyone joins the same army for 3 years. Rich, poor, Ethiopian, Russian, Jew. That's the positive side of a national service. We just lost 16 AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps has been cut. Our AmeriCorps team had 8 people. One of them is finishing now. She's starting now a graduate in Chicago. Another one is in Washington University. So you had 8 who came sort of from college background, and you have 8 who came from sort of ex-offending background. They're going to forever change. They've been changed. The college educated are not speaking about the inner city now in a way that they would have spoken before. And the inner city young people are not speaking about and dreaming about college the way they never have dreamt before because they spent a year together. So partially we got to change our society, but not just door knocking. We got to go take it like the lady yesterday was saying about going to Fox News. We got to take it. It's a philosophical battle, but also allow people into our agencies to spend time immersed. They're going back as agents of change.
So we'll take this minute to wrap up this exercise. Everyone turn to the center of the room. As you can see, it's empty. What did the center represent earlier? Family. If we have a non-existent structure for family, no support, it doesn't exist, and therefore anything else after that does not exist. When we talk about a disconnect from policymakers and community, what we just said was that policymakers are not a part of community. And that's a problem. If it all builds on one another, then we're missing something, right? The family structure is missing. The community structure is missing. And the most poignant statement I heard was, just talk to each other. There is value in touching one another's shoulder. There is value in communicating with one another, knowing that there is something that you can learn from those who you are helping. Service is not about, I'm coming to save you. Service is about, we are communicating. You are an expert of your own oppression. I can't come into your community, into your family, and prescribe to you what is wrong with you. I have a conversation with you, and through my expertise, we can figure this thing out together, right? So community is about togetherness. It's about interacting with one another and knowing that you can learn as much as you can teach. Amen?
Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you.